Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche. This week we are covering Mistborn, The Final Empire, chapters 18 and 19. In these chapters, Vin goes to her second ball, which goes about as strangely as her first one did. And then we get to see what Kelsier does of an evening as he searches for a place to dump a body. I am Data, and with me is...
Jack.
Jamie.
And Joe.
So let's get into it. Hang on to something, everybody. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
My revolution carries me in a moment lost in time. My revolution sets me free. I will flow across the lines. Bring up the brother in me. I'm searching for you.
Okay. And so this week, the chapters were a little bit not quite as crazy as last week's, but I thought they were pretty fun. What did you guys think of them overall?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the first chapter, and then the second chapter kind of made me anxious, filled with a little bit of anxiety for the team.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like not a whole lot happened, but at the same time, we got a lot of information in these two chapters, and there was something specific that was said kind of in passing that I'm reading on a Kindle, so I'm not sure if it was a typo or if it was meant to be there and kind of just thrown in, but it's something that they refer to Renault as.
When it says, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so when we get there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I thought these chapters were good. Both of them are very mired in house politics from very different angles. So it's just like, oh, this is the Game of Thrones portion of the book where everyone's spying on each other and trying to get information and whatnot. But it was fun. Something that's happened, like it sort of happened in this chapter, and then listening to our older episodes sort of cemented it. Sazed is really just starting to remind me of Shepherd Book from Firefly.
Totally see that. Yep.
That's just something that's sort of come out in, like, it's just hit me in these chapters. So that's sort of maybe not how I'm picturing him, but I'm definitely how I'm hearing his voice.
Very calm influence. I can totally see how you could picture them sounding the same.
Yeah, but also, talking about belief all the time.
Just generally not offensive to anyone as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like Shepherd Book is offensive to Mal in the show, just existing because of Mal's distaste for religion after the first episode.
Much like the keepers to the Lord Ruler, I guess.
I was going to say much like Says to Vin, because he's always trying to sell her on religion. She's like, I don't care. Why?
Yeah.
She's always willing to listen, it seems like, though. She's like, okay, fine, tell me about another one, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I liked seeing Vin a little bit more confident at the ball and seeing a few more interactions with other nobility. I thought that was pretty cool. And, yeah, just watching her find out information, and that was a bit of fun. And I actually really enjoyed in the second chapter we read with Kelsier, causing trouble, but not... Previously, it's sort of been his breaking into places and disturbing the peace that way, but watching him find more information and do a bit of sleuthing, was pretty cool. I like that he was sussing out, what people knew and then doubling as an informant to Venture. I just thought that was really clever. I really liked it. So
it was very funny how he kept stealing the other guy's lines to use himself.
He was like, actually, that works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely more subtle than we've seen
did.
Kelsier most of the time.
Yeah, and he did what that informant did. It's like, even though Kelsier was feeding the informant fake information, he used being an informant to get information from Lord Venture. So I thought that was pretty smart.
Yeah.
It's kind of good to we're starting to get a bit of an insight of what the other side feel, like maybe not how they feel about the Lord Ruler and things like that, but what their impression of what's going on. Like they know something's going on, but they can't quite figure it out yet. So it was nice to sort of see a little bit of like their journey coming together in the same timeline.
And we got to meet Straff Venture, which was on Dak's list of like, this is strange that we haven't met this guy yet.
Yeah.
But okay, so I guess let's get started into this. The first bit, as usual, is the epigraph here, and it's really just more of a continuation on the last few. Like we're getting kind of a miniature life story on this guy who's writing these. And he's talking about how the circumstances forced him to leave home, and he'd be dead if he hadn't. And I'm slowly coming to understand that anonymity has already been lost to me forever. Whereas we know from the other parts of the journal that we've read that this guy is already the hero of ages, and he's going to go on, he's on this adventure to defeat the deepness or whatever. And so the fact that he's like, I just figured out that I can't be like an anonymous person is kind of funny.
Sort of feel for the guy a bit. It's like, that's everyone always dreams of becoming the hero, but with becoming the hero becomes publicity. You don't get your private me time anymore.
Yeah, he's being forced to, take over kingdoms and go on adventures in the mountains with packmen who don't like him and stuff.
That guy's
Not a lot of downtime.
I just want a quiet night at home watching TV. Please leave me alone. Come on, Desperate Housewives is on.
But it feels
All the
like
shows I could have thought of.
if this guy's become the Lord Ruler, we don't see the Lord Ruler doing a lot of stuff. He apparently hangs out in the palace and doesn't do much. So maybe he got there eventually.
Maybe, yeah, it's just him hanging out with the Inquisitors. It's like, all right, cool. All my sort of blind guys are hanging around.
Yeah, at their barracks building, he goes there every 3 days to hang out with them. That's what we decided, right? So
Drinks night with the Spike Faces.
gotta come up with a better name for them.
With the spike faces. Maybe he would call them Inquisitors, what he actually named them to begin with.
Yeah. I like the idea that he doesn't like
He's like, oh,
know
don't be
their
so
names.
formal.
He's just
Come
like
on, Spiky
Pointy Joe, Mr. Piffles, whatever. Just
Pointy Joe was my nickname in high school.
okay, if you say so.
not gonna get into the story
We're not
behind
delving
that.
more into that. Just nope, zooming right past it. It turns out that everyone was right. She decided to wear the red dress, so points all around.
Woo!
Whose line is it anyway? Points, where the points don't matter. But
Will you throw us $100 bills like that one episode?
did they do that in an episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway?
They sure did.
That's impressive. No, I will not.
It's all the budget allowed for.
Yeah. So Vin's going back to the party, or back to a party, this time at Keep Ilarial, which is weird to me how similar some of these house names sound. It's kind of hard to keep track of them all. There's 10 great houses, so...
I imagine it's probably a case of, as the descendants come past, like, they might split off and form their own sort of branches of houses, and they'll take a slightly variant name for their, like, cadet branch of the house, and then eventually it becomes its own separate thing to the point where people just don't remember they were together to start with.
I'm sure that's probably right. It reminds me of that bit from... Wise Man's Fear, where they're talking about how like the Lackless house turned into all these different names in different parts of the country.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sure you're right though. And Vin gets there and she's feeling a little bit self-conscious because of all the other noble women looking all perfect or whatever. It's just such a weird line that's kind of dancing around. She's like, they filled out the upper portions of their dresses. It's like, okay, Vin's a little bit self-conscious there. It's okay. Which is funny because up till now she's like, no, I like looking like I'm too young to even be 16, and you can mistake me for a boy. It helps me stay kind of under the radar.
Yeah, but she's never really had to wear a dress before, so this is all
True.
Like, oh, I like wearing the dress, but I don't quite have the figure to fill it, whereas they do.
And she realizes that she's not wearing the same kind of shoes as everybody else because they're all wearing high heels. Says very rightly is like, no, you just learned to dance. You don't need to do the heels. Yeah, we'll get there maybe.
Yeah, you don't really want to wear heels, Vin. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, no. She doesn't understand that yet. Joe sounds like he's speaking from experience. He's like, oh, these heels.
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, you know me. No, I work with a lot of women that wear heels every day, and they always have like blisters on their heels and stuff. And I'm like, why do you do that to yourself? And they're like, they look pretty. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I don't know why we do these things, but there is some sort of attraction in. They look good. I'll deal with it.
Do you have tellers at the bank who wear heels? That would be. I feel like no one's ever going to see their feet. That would be mean.
Not tellers. Usually it's just like bankers and other people that sit at desks or walk around and stuff.
That makes sense.
Yep.
So she sees the dancing, and she's actually kind of excited this time, and Sazed even points it out. He's like, you're not as nervous. You seem kind of excited. I think that's the proper attitude. And Sazed explains to her, how she's supposed to get all this information, which I feel like in the middle of the party is probably not the best time to be going over this, but whatever.
Like they had a whole carriage ride for this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
And then he even goes into the concept of like kind of dating, which she seems to be shocked by. She's like, wait, I would just sit with one guy the entire time? But I guess it seems to be that's kind of normal for the nobility, is they kind of like set up dates for these kids going to these balls. At least if Elend's experience is any indication.
She's never gone steady, man. Leave her alone.
She's still playing the field, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And then she's sitting here thinking like, oh, I bet Elend won't be here. He's not going to pay any attention to me even if he was here. And then all of a sudden here comes Elend Venture dropping stacks of books on her table and taking up the entirety of her one-person table with his books.
With his thick books, as we said.
So what do you guys think of what Elend is playing here, where he's just like, oh, no, I just thought I'd sit with you. There's room for both of us here. I'm just going to sit here and read my books.
I mean, he likes her. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. Even if there is some small part of him that is using her, he obviously enjoys talking with her, being around her. Otherwise, he wouldn't bother.
I think he finds her interesting because she's different, and he doesn't know why, and he's trying to figure that out. And because he has no social skills, this is his method of doing so. He just walks in with a fucking library and just sits down at the table with them all. It just seems like overkill. But what do I know?
If you're gonna bring books to, if you're gonna read a book at a party, you may as well, do it upright.
I guess it. I was just thrown for a loop by how many he brought. I'm like, do you expect to read all of these in the few hours that you're going to be here? What are you, a speed reader? And he might be. I don't know.
It was confusing. I think they kind of explain it where they were like, he's making notes in one and then cross-referencing a different one. And then obviously, as we find out, he may have had
he's doing
more
his bloody
books.
thesis?
Yeah, I guess so. And then as we find out, he has like another book that he's trying to hide within his book. So it may have just all been a cover so that he could read that one book. I don't know.
It sounds like he gives off this air of, I don't really care about what's happening in noble society, and, it's all a bore to me, and I'm just going to brush it off. But I think this kid's got a lot more going on than he wants anyone to know about. And he is a bit of a mystery. Like, they're like, oh, stay away from him, he's bad news or whatever. But he's got alliances with houses they didn't expect, and, she's new, and he's going to suss her out. And, yeah, I don't know. There's more to this kid anyway.
So you think maybe Kelsier has a point kind of at the end of this chapter when he's like, keep an eye on this, Says. Maybe Lord Venture and his son are playing us all for fools.
Could be.
Okay, interesting. Says has to take some books off the table to put on the floor just so there's room for Vin's dinner when it gets there. It's just, this kid's kind of obnoxious, but it's funny.
How gentlemanly.
And then Elend kind of insults Says a little bit, and Vin just goes off on him, causing him to apologize. He's like, oh, this person actually cares about something. I'm sorry.
I like how that's where he finally gets caught off guard. He's trying to project this like really casual, I don't care about any of these people. I'm above all of this bullshit. And then like he talks last time about how, people mistreat the servants and stuff like that, and then he just gives shit to her servant, and she's like, no, you watch your fucking mouth. And he's just like, oh, shit. Okay, line crossed. Remember that.
She really likes Says. So we were talking earlier about the relationship.
Like Says is awesome.
That's a good point.
Says is the MVP.
Joe
cool.
Joe still thinks he might be a traitor, so.
Yeah, I mean, you can still be cool and be evil. It's fine. Some of the coolest characters in fiction are evil.
That is
You're going
true.
to say some of your best friends are evil.
Yeah, some of my best friends are evil.
Okay. And they get into their, sarcastic repartee back and forth. And then Elend just pops up. He's like, that's a stunning dress, by the way. It's almost as beautiful as you are. And then she stands there, sits there slack-jawed for a second. And there's like, you're doing this on purpose.
Yeah, I like the part that says her jaw literally dropped. It's just like, oh, okay.
And then we find out that he actually has a date that he's supposed to be here with. She's sitting over there. As this woman is sitting over there, like, shooting death glances at Vin for stealing her important date.
It's like, oh, good, we've entered the Mean Girls portion of the book.
We kind of have in this chapter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought about that. I really thought she was going to sit down and be like, you have to wear pink on Wednesday or whatever.
Who has red to a ball? Jeez.
Who eats their whole dessert? I'm only eating half of mine.
So Ellen's excuse is like, well, I didn't invite her. I wasn't even told who I was going with until I got in my carriage. Which, what a great excuse to just like diss some woman in front of all of the nobility basically at this party.
We got in the same taxi. It doesn't mean I have to be friends with her.
And then when he gets up to get a drink, Say's just like, okay, listen, this is bad. And Vin's like, what? No, I mean, it's fine, right? And he's like, no, listen, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you have to understand that this guy doesn't actually like you. He's just trying to act like a douche and be a spoiled brat so that his father gives him whatever he wants. And it totally does hurt Vin's feelings because she's a teenager and she's got like this crush going on this guy.
She's like, whatever, Dad.
And she even thinks about it. She's like, I know that he's probably exactly right. Like, I understand the situation. I'm exactly what he needs. Someone low enough to annoy his father, but inexperienced enough not to see what's happening. And push it, knowing logically that makes perfect sense still doesn't make it not unpleasant for her.
I was trying to think to myself, so Elend Venture really bothers me. And it wasn't until here that it sort of clicked to me why. And I think it's the fact that after all the others have had to go through, like Kelsier and Doxson and all the rest have had to do to get Vin to trust them, because that took fucking forever. Mm-hmm. Then you've got this one guy who starts hitting on her at a party, and within 2 dates she's already got a massive crush on him. And I was like, that seems way too easy. Like, the other guys had to be nice, good people to her for months before she really trusted them properly. And now this guy rocks up, and within 2 nights she's just like, oh, he's not that bad, he's a wonderful guy. And I think that's rubbing me the wrong way a bit, I think.
She's changed so much, though, in the last, the few months that we've seen in the book. She is just trusting people and realizing that not the whole world is, out to get you. But, I mean, look at how old she is, and, you've fancied her up and gone to a ball, and someone's paid her some sort of attention, and this is completely new to her. But also she was like, when she first met him, it was strange. Like, it's the first person that she's just been able to be herself with, not the front she would put up with Cameron, not the front she would put up with Kelsier. Like, she was just the first time she'd actually been herself.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
I mean, you've never met a person that just makes you feel like that,
I'm not saying it's unrealistic. I'm just saying that after all the other time with the other guys, it just seems like a bit of a, of course, you have a crush and you're just throwing all your caution to the wind.
I can see the frustration there, definitely. And what Jamie says makes a lot of sense.
Oh, it totally does. Totally in character. It's totally realistic, and I can totally understand when someone can make you throw caution to the wind a bit like that. I'm just saying, from a reader's perspective, it's kind of like a, God damn it, this is going to end badly for you.
Yeah. Yep. And Say's is telling her, he's like, look, this guy's messing with you, and you need to recognize this. And I think the unspoken message is there. It's like, it's going to be a lot worse at the end if you don't recognize what's happening now. Like, you may think this hurts right now, me trying to be honest with you, but it's going to hurt a lot worse later if you don't listen. Which is fair. That's kind of warning that adults are always trying to give to teenagers, I think, that they don't want to listen to.
I guess at this time, though, you there's more at stake than a broken heart. So listen to Sayst.
Listen to Uncle Sayst.
Well, and Kelsier later on. He's even, well, we'll get there when we get there. But so Elend is sitting there reading, and she's like, well, let's see what he does if I don't interrupt him in his reading. So they've got this little battle of wills silently happening at the table as she eats her meal, until finally she wins, because he's like, why are you here, Valette? And they have kind of, I almost said an honest conversation, except every single thing she says is a lie about where she's from and how long it took her to get here and stuff. And they sort of delve into, like, the ska and how the ska are treated here versus at the plantation where she supposedly comes from. And we find out later, at least, that she's taking this to mean, this guy's like legitimately interested in the ska and their well-being because of the kind of questions that he asks. And she almost like slips up in here and says too much, but has to stop herself. I also like the moment where he's like, well, you know what the ministry teaches. And the next sentence is, she didn't. However, if it was regarding the ska, it probably wasn't flattering. So she has to fake her way through that.
She's pretty good on her feet here.
She is. You got to give her credit. Like, this is really, last time she didn't really have to interact with anybody except to tell people, no, I don't want to dance. And that one encounter with Elend. So this time this is the first time she's having to act in character, and she does a pretty good job. he asks if the ska are intelligent, and he's like, but not like you and me, right? And she's like, how would a noble woman respond to that? No, they're not like you and me.
He seems disappointed.
Yeah.
Ominous.
And we find out that people have been watching and might want to ask Finn to dance, but they're being intimidated until she basically has to like catch some guy's eye and be like, hey, come on, man.
Come on, make this guy jealous.
Do you think that's what it does? Do you feel like when she came back that he was actually jealous?
Oh, I think a little, but I think he's also self-aware enough to just think, you know what, I brought that on myself. Because I mean, he could have easily asked her to dance and didn't, so he's kind of just like, well, my bad.
He kind of falls into her trap a little bit, though, because she's like, I mean, I just told him, since you're so much older than me, that you're just looking out for me. And he's like, I'm not that much older than you. I'm only 21.
That is probably my favorite part of the chapter, where it's just like, she goes off and has this dance. This young guy she finds out is just as nervous as she is, maybe more so, and also is not a good dancer.
I thought that was a really, really lovely little moment there. It's just like, oh God, I'm going to get caught out by this guy. This guy doesn't know how to dance either. Jesus Christ.
I think that probably puts her at ease here more than anything else. If she realizes some of these guys are like young and nervous more so than I am, and they're not like secretly ska sneaking into this party, so I can probably do this. She tries to bring up Elend with the guy, and he's like, I don't know. I'm not important enough to know anything about him. So she comes up with this excuse that, oh yeah, my uncle asked him to watch over me at parties. It's so nice. He's supposed to be introducing me around. He's like an older brother to me. And that opens the door for more people to come and ask her to dance. Now we get one brief moment here where he's like, you're so graceful. You're not at all like Lady Shan said. Oh, I mean, nothing.
She's put you in the burn book.
This person that Vin's never even met or seen at this point doesn't even know who they are, but apparently she's already kind of starting shit.
Already got an enemy. Good job.
Yeah.
I mean, not that she could have helped it.
No, I don't think there's anything she could have done. But yeah, when Elend comes back, we get to the point that Joe was talking about where, after he tricks her into like saying something that he's like, are you asking me to dance? It's unladylike to ask a man to dance, And he's like, no, I told her that you're an older brother. And he's like, older brother? It's like, yeah, you got to be at least twice my age. At which point he's like, I'm 21. Unless you are a very mature 10-year-old, I am nowhere near twice your age. And her response of, I've never been good with math. It's fine. It's just my favorite interaction.
I can't do basic subtraction.
And she asks him about Lady Shan, and he's like, Shan Ilariol? Who, that's where we are tonight, right? Keep Ilariol, so I guess.
Yes.
She's on her turf. And he's like, oh, she's nobody important. And she's like, seriously, dude, I've been doing this for 2 months. Even I know that you can't get away with just that. And it turns out that they're kind of maybe engaged. Maybe not, though.
Who is she? Nobody important. I might marry her, I might be marrying her, but she's not important. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, and to be fair, apparently his family's setting him up with dates with completely different women at the party of the woman that he may be engaged to, like at her house. So clearly the situation is kind of complicated, but
I feel like later they say several times that she is his like former fiance or ex-fiance. They make it clear that like at some point they ended something.
But he doesn't bring that up, and so it's like, I might be engaged to her. I actually don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, all he says is we haven't really done anything about it in a year or so probably everyone's forgotten.
Except her.
Either that's normal. Yeah, exactly. Either that's normal in their culture, or I feel like he was just saying that, like he knows it's kind of over between them, but he was saying that to make her jealous back.
I don't know. Maybe Luthadell's just into polygamy.
Maybe he actually just doesn't care about that. It seems to be important to his family that he date people or whatever, but he's just so not interested. And I think now he's interested in Vin, but, I don't think they're at getting hitched level.
It kind of fits with the character that Kelsier and Saved and Renu have all laid out for Vin that this guy is. It's like he's this guy who just does crazy stuff and does what is not expected of him because he wants to piss off his father, basically. And so that's exactly the kind of thing that person that they're describing would say. It's like, yeah, my father set up this engagement with her, but whatever, I don't know. There's probably nothing there. Or my father set up this date for me, so I left her at a table by herself so that I could come over here and sit at the table of someone who will make her upset. He's kind of fitting their description, I feel like.
Yep.
And then Vin gets a lot more dancing done. She to the point that she's turning on her pewter to kind of give her some strength to keep going. But of course, she is still kind of recovering from her injury, so maybe it's fair.
Yeah, she's still recovering from the group rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody down on the dance floor.
And so she decides to pick up a book so that she can pretend to read, so people will stop asking her to dance at this point. And I like her reaction is like, I can't believe people read books this big. I feel like that's like a fantasy author's dig at the fantasy audience or something. It's like, who reads books that big? Jeez.
Who has the time? Also just brings back to, Elend, you weren't really expecting to read all these books if you've got one the size of a doorstop. So we missed just like, I love that little note. It's like, all right, yeah, good thing I wore slippers instead of heels.
Yep. She's like, okay, I get what he meant now. Yep.
Yep.
Didn't even have to wear heels to get the message across. And we get a little taste of, the 5th century. The book is called like the 5th Century Governorship Program and the Rise of the Ska Plantations. And it's kind of, when she skips to the last chapter, it's kind of a treatise on how the Lord Ruler has the government set up now, and comparing it to previous methodologies of government in the Final Empire. And I find it interesting, this kind of background that it gives us about, like, how this current thing's set up with the plantations and the plantation lords or something is a new or the newest version of the government that the Lord Ruler has tried. And the person who writes the book feels like it kind of works because of the competitive environment that it sets up between the different plantation lord types. And everyone's trying to, make money and do better than the other guy.
I feel like this is sort of heavy foreshadowing for the whole, if they do topple the Lord Ruler, then what? Just because you overthrow a tyrant doesn't mean you know how to run a government. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really where this is all going to lead to. It's like, just got to, you need to really know how to make things work with a population, not just with the bad guy.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, because all Kelsier's really said is like, we're going to overthrow him and steal his money, and then Yedden can handle his stuff. That's not our end of the deal. He'll have to figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know that any of us think that Yedden is going to be politically savvy enough to run a government efficiently.
I don't think Yedden thinks Yedden is politically savvy enough to run a country.
Yedden's still hoping that Marsh will come in and do it.
Yeah.
I think he is, yeah. Which, if Marsh is going to sneak into the ministry somehow, he'll get some experience. He'll be an obligator or whatever and figure this stuff out, right?
Yeah. It sort of puts me in the mind of A Song of Ice and Fire, like Game of Thrones, when, because that was like the whole point of that story. It's like, that's the backstory of that was the whole rising against and overthrowing a tyrant and then putting the hero on the throne. And then that story is entirely about how, Robert Baratheon was a great warrior and a true hero, but he made a terrible king. And so, like, the politics of that situation is how everything fell apart. So I feel like it's sort of leading into a similar sort of thing. Just because you can win the war doesn't mean you know how to run the world. Yeah,
I can see that. It's kind of like the opposite end of that same story, where it's like, this is before that happened, and this might be foreshadowing that, it's more complicated than you think to try to run this. Because just from this one section that she's reading right here, we find out that, what was it? It's like the 5th Century Governorship Program. So the 5th century, 500 years into the Lord Ruler's rule, he's still trying out new governments to see what's going to work.
Doesn't really speak well for like the first 500 years of his rule. Then it's like, shit, okay, that one didn't work. All right, well, now what if I try this over here? Okay, so let's see. Democracy didn't work. Socialism didn't work. All right, let's try despotism. Maybe that'll do it.
It's the kind of thing you can do if you're an immortal god king. You can, you can just keep trying.
Yeah, as long as you have the power to quell any rebellion that comes forward. It's like, I can just keep trying. It's fine. I'll figure it out.
Maybe that's why he's such a recluse. He's like, guys, I can't come out tonight. I have to redo the government structure again.
And I also like the very end of the section where it talks about how the aristocracy's independence has been tempered by a renewed vigor in obligator enforcement. And no lord would be advised to think himself above the law because the call from an inquisitor can come to anyone. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we kind of knew that, but
yes, fascism, that'll do it.
it really is. It's kind of like, even if you're a member of the Nazi party, it doesn't mean that like the brown shirts can't knock down your door in the middle of the night and drag you out.
Yep.
And Vin's just like, wow, I can't believe the Lord Ruler like let such analytical discussions of his empire be written. Whatever.
You kind of go, like, after reading these entries that we think is the Lord Ruler as well, that character doesn't appear to be an unreasonable person, whereas having this written about his government, it seems to be quite rational, and he's like, you know what, this will happen and this will happen, and it's like there's some thought that's gone into it, and it's made sense. So it's not like he's just this tyrant. I mean, even though he is what we think he is, but he's maybe still not as bad as what we think he is. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like an objective ruler might welcome some, serious analytical work to be like, here's the stuff that went wrong that I can try to fix the next time I set up a new government for my empire. So maybe it makes perfect sense from that perspective.
In sort of a slanted way, it also works as propaganda for his current regime, because like people might protest the way things are now, and then there's this book saying it's like, okay, like we get that this system's not perfect, but look at the systems we had before. They were even worse. That's why we have this system to begin with. People go, okay, maybe we shouldn't protest this current system.
That's an interesting point too. Yeah. Yeah. If you
Weird,
can point
weird
out
sort of propaganda.
Yeah. If you can say, yeah, stuff's bad now, but look how bad it used to be. Look how far we've come. Maybe, don't be such a jerk about it.
Yeah, it's like we tried this system you're campaigning for. It didn't work.
Of course, the next section of book that we get is even kind of more serious, but we'll get to that here in a second. But so a terroristman shows up and is like, Lady Chandelier requires your presence at her table. And Vin's like, requires. Okay. But apparently Illyrial is one of the more important great houses, so, you can't say no to such a polite invitation. And she goes and she meets Lady Shan, who is a huge jerk. I don't know if there's any other way to put it.
Nope.
She's even like, wow, noblemen treat each other like this? I thought this was just how they treated the Ska. Jeez.
Classism.
Yeah, well. And Shan's even like, you will address me as Lady Shan, or perhaps your ladyship. It's like, okay, sure, why not? And she's like, you are in an enviable position because you can be used by me against Lord Venture.
Like, wow, someone has a high opinion of herself.
I envy you. You can be used by me. I can't even be used by myself.
Not with that attitude.
And she's just like, if you do well, perhaps I will let you join my retinue. You could learn much from the ladies of Luthadel. Just look at yourself, child. So scrawny that your hair or your dress hangs like a bag. Being a noblewoman requires perfection, not that. Which, we're just deep in the Mean Girls section now, where she's just like, there's just so much wrong. Just look at yourself. It's like, what's wrong? Well, you are what's wrong. Fix all of that.
It's like there isn't even any subtlety to this, or any like, just trying to sweeten it up. She's just like the bluntest person ever. It's like, well, you ugly, you dress stupid. like I'm awesome. If you're good to me, I might allow you to become part of my team, and that's awesome because I'm awesome. Stupid bitch.
He's like the Old Spice guy. He's like, look at yourself. Now look at me. Now look back at yourself. Now look at me.
How dare you sully the Old Spice guy like
that? Yeah, the Old Spice guy is nice, though. This girl is something else.
The Old Spice guy encourages you to be your best.
And then
Sounds like somebody wears Old Spice is all I'm saying.
He's on a horse.
So she
right
smells
now.
like a man?
Know. Apparently, being an important member of one of the great houses means that you don't have to take shit from anybody, and you can just tell the little people what to do, and they have to do it. And probably my favorite line of this discussion is when Shan's like, "I trust from your vapid look that you accept your place." It's like, okay, yeah. Vin could slap you really hard. I just want you to know, and you would regret all of this.
Yeah, soothe your way out of a metal slap. I bet that'll work.
Yeah, and then she starts soothing, and Vin can feel it happening. She's like, "Wow, she's pretty good at this, actually." which totally comes up later in the next chapter, but we'll get there too. And she's like, tell me about your conversation with Lord Venture. And Vin starts telling her until she notices that the terraceman, who belongs to Lady Shan, is sneaking over to her table and starting to poke through Elend's books. And she's just like, if this lady wants something, I can't let her have it. So she gives the lamest excuse ever of, I have to get back. I told my terraceman to find me at my table. I have to run away now. And just takes off.
Yeah, like, you know, she had to come up with that on the fly. That's not her fault, I think.
I think it even fits with her, like, naive kind of country girl attitude that she's supposed to be projecting here of, like, this inexperienced noblewoman. So it totally works in character. It's just hilarious.
Yeah.
And so she goes back she kind of just needs to sit at her table now to stop people from going through Elend's books, which he just left on the table and walked away, by the way. So it's his own fault if something happens.
Shouldn't have brought him to the party.
Yeah, seriously. And so we finally get to this other book that she starts reading, the one that's labeled Weathering Patterns of the Northern Dominance, but is nothing of the kind.
Unless this is just some random passage within that book, and then after this it goes into, okay, wind. Let's talk about wind.
There's lots of wind in the north, and it's cold.
Cold as balls.
But this book is just like, one fact is unmistakable about the Final Empire. For a nation ruled by a self-proclaimed divinity, it has experienced a frightening number of colossal leadership errors. He even throws in, like, some adjectives in there. It's like, there's not just a number of leadership errors. There is a frightening number of colossal leadership errors.
Yeah, don't hold back.
And he says most of these have been covered up and can now only be found in the metal minds of ferrochemists or on the pages of banned texts. Which, hey, we've heard metal mined before, right?
Yep, that was what Sayes was burning or using.
He used up a whole
Yeah.
metal mind.
Yeah.
Or the actual term for it, metalhead.
I saw that coming. Yep.
Yeah, there it is.
But so we find out that metal mines belong to ferrochemists, which I believe is a new word for us.
Yes, don't think we come across that before. So these are the guys who understand why metal does what it does, rather than just, you know, drinking some and then going, now I can do crazy shit.
There's been a revision of the deepness doctrine at some point, apparently. So even if we could figure out what everyone thinks the deepness was, apparently it's been revised. So maybe that wasn't what it originally was. And I like how he says, which we kind of even talked about a little bit before, but he's like, or whoever wrote this, is like, before the Ascension, there was an endless cycle of kings and emperors and other monarchs. One would think with a single immortal governor, society would finally have the opportunity to find stability and enlightenment. But a lack of either of those attributes in the Final Empire is the Lord Ruler's most grievous oversight. At which point Vin is like, what? And slams the book closed and kind of like throws it away from her, like, oh, I cannot be caught reading that. That's not good.
Which again begs the question, why the fuck would Elend bring that to somewhere public?
Yeah.
Where it could be easily found and people would say, oh, look, he's reading text against the Lord Ruler. Like, this is the sort of shit that will get you hung up by a hook through your chin.
Well, yeah. And I mean, Kelsier even talks about that later, and this is probably a good place to talk about it since it's in reference to the specific scene. But Kelsier's like, yeah, this particular book is actually pretty boring, so it wasn't banned outright. But he went on to write some books that were even worse than this one, and they were banned. And even though he didn't blaspheme against allomancy, the Inquisitors made an exception and gave him the hook.
Yeah.
And so, Elend, you have to wonder, because Jamie's theory was like, maybe he's kind of more on the ball than we give him credit for. And apparently Shan Ilarial is looking for something to use against him. So you almost have to wonder, is this some clever, like, trap on his part to seed this thing there and then walk away and leave it for her people to come and find? Or is he just that oblivious to how dangerous this might be?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he was. The fact that he left the table, left the books there, it almost makes me think, like, was he testing Ven to see what she would do? Because after she closes the book, he comes back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You reckon he was watching?
Yeah, it might have been. I mean, I feel like and of course we don't know that much about him, but I feel like this guy's smarter than your average nobleman, and I think he knows that Shan would try to get something on him, even if it was just to blackmail him into getting married. She's gonna try to find something on him. So I think he would know not to leave something like that around unless he has was doing it on purpose and for a specific reason.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you're right. He almost immediately after she puts down that book, picks up another book, or the first book that she'd been looking at, and starts looking at it again. And he's there like right away. So maybe you have a point. Okay, let's see. After she puts the book down, she's looking around, make sure no obligators are noticing her. And then Elend puts his hand on her shoulder, and she jumps because she's so worried about what was just happening, and somebody's gonna jump out of nowhere and grab her. And he's like, "Hey, are you enjoying Heberin?" Which I guess is the author of that other book. And she's like, "No, I was just pretending to read so that people would stop asking me to dance." And they talk and talk. And she says, "You can't stay aloof from court forever." And he says, "That's probably true, but the longer I hold out, the more annoyed my father will become. And that in itself is a worthy goal." Which, we've met his dad for a whole minute now. And his dad is also a jerk. So maybe I don't feel
no
too
surprise
bad.
there.
Well, yeah, that's true. He's the lord of one of the most powerful houses in the Final Empire. He's going to be an asshole, obviously.
Yep.
So I don't blame Elend that much for wanting to annoy the guy. And then he has a comment about women and how they are like thunderstorms, which makes Vin's jaw drop again. And then he smiles at her, and she's like, "You say these things just to provoke me." He goes, "I'm charming that way." This guy. It's hard to tell if he's like really flirting or if he's just annoying.
He's used that line on other women before.
That's what I was about to say. Can't it be both?
Oh yeah, sure. Why not? Sazed comes back. They notice that Elend is going off with someone from House Lacal and also someone from House Hastings, which are rivals to Venture.
So are those two boys also trying to piss off their fathers?
Maybe. And Vin's like, "Yeah, my feet hurt. Let's get out of here." And then there's the scene as they're waiting for her carriage, which, just in case, in like the one chapter since the last time you were reminded, you have forgotten how crappy it is to be a ska.
Daily reminder, let's go.
Yep. Well, because Vin kind of has half forgotten sometimes, it seems like. She goes to these parties and sees all the pretty people and all the dancing, and she apparently needs these reminders. Where there's a kitchen boy who was caught trying to beg from a nobleman, so they take him off into the mist and slit his throat right in the courtyard.
And no one bats an eye.
No one cares.
But they make sure to take him out of sights first, so they don't offend the nobility with the sight of such a thing. It's very much let's remove him from your presence because that's where he's meant to be, and then they do it permanently.
We should have a recurring segment on the show called "It Sucks to Be a Ska." Excuse me. Yeah, it sucks to be a ska.
The Shaw, the Shaw hasn't really been.
The Shaw. No, it sucks to be a ska. Listeners, make us some intro music for the segment. It sucks to be a ska.
You use that song from Avenue Q. It sucks to be me.
Yeah, but then just put just a really harsh voiceover where it's just like, "It sucks to be ska."
I've never actually seen Avenue Q. The only song I know from it is "The Internet is for Porn." So
yeah, that's the one everyone knows. It's good. You should give the soundtrack a listen sometime.
Yeah, I keep meaning to. It's one of those things. Like, there's a lot of musicals that I'm actually I've seen bits of. I'm like, hey, that looks really good. I want to see it sometime. Like Hamilton looks really cool. I can't wait till it comes out on Disney Plus in July so that I can actually watch it.
But it is coming out on Disney Plus, isn't it?
Yep. And they're it's gonna be a version with Lin-Manuel Miranda actually in playing the character, which he obviously can't do in all the shows. But so I think it's gonna be a really good version.
This podcast is not sponsored by Disney.
This podcast, exactly, not sponsored by Disney.
But could be. Once again, give me a call, Mr. Chapek. We're here.
Let me call this data.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
Seems on the ball.
So yeah, they do it out of the eyesight of regular people, but Vin can still see it with her tin, and it seems like people could probably still hear it. And they just how dare you beg from noblemen? We're just going to kill you. And he was struggling. And it's like, she says that they did it here in the courtyard just because he was struggling and annoying the guy. So instead of take him like out back all the way away from everyone to kill him, he just took him a little ways and then killed him so that he would be less annoying to drag away.
I like the narrative. It's like, they killed him like an animal. Oh, wait, no, not like an animal. No one slaughters pigs in the courtyard. Holy shit. So, yeah.
Sazed has to kind of hold her back and force her to, get moving again when it's time to get in the carriage because she's just so stunned by what happened. And she has to remind herself, she's like, don't forget the ash because you see a little silk. They would do the exact same thing to you if they knew who you were. And that's the end of the chapter, a very upbeat ending. But the Final Empire's not an upbeat place, so...
It's like, did you have a nice night at the party? Yeah, hung out with my boyfriend, danced with a few guys, saw a dude get killed.
Yeah, a boy.
Another day in the life of a Mistborn.
Yep.
And then this may be, the beginning of the next chapter may be one of my favorite epigraphs, just because we learn about this Quan guy, and he's not like all the other religious the other terrorist philosophers. He didn't even really care about religion. He was at the great Clenny Library studying whether or not trees could think when he discovered this guy who was going to be the hero of ages.
He's looking for ants, damn it.
He is. You get the impression that he's like this weird, quirky dude, and now I want to like meet him.
Also, what drove him to this conclusion? Can trees think? Were you hanging out in the forest a bit too long as a kid, and now you just... Did a branch fall on you? Did you think it was malicious intent on the tree's part?
That's how dwarves feel. They hate trees. They're always, up to no good.
Well, in fairness, in Lord of the Rings, they have valid reasons for that.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We learn slightly more about Quan. He's a fun guy. And we move to Kelsier, who we don't know, right away, but he's hanging out in the night with a corpse, trying to figure out the right spot to drop it. And he sees that Keep Techiel has 5 tin eyes forming a perimeter around to keep watch. And he kind of thinks to himself how funny it is because, all these Allomancers are like the house noblemen, and they're going to be really annoyed at having to just be on guard duty.
He's like, oh no, your lives are so hard. Oh, wait a minute.
They had to miss the party tonight, to be on guard duty at the house. It's totally not fair. But then he finds a small reflecting pool and dumps the corpse in there or onto the ground near it. And he kind of explains to us, more or less, that, don't feel bad for this guy. He was all noblemen, according to Kelsier, deserve it. But this guy probably more than most because he loves ska blood fights and other twisted pleasures. He's infamous for it. So don't feel bad about him getting a couple of knives in the back.
Yep, there's one thing you want to be infamous for. It's twisted pleasures.
But I assume ska blood fights are like that scene from Django Unchained. That's the only thing I can kind of think of to place there.
Yeah, there's also what is it? There's Altered Carbon, which is a show on Netflix. They got like fights like that too.
I was just gonna say, it just seems like they treat the Scar as less than animals, so this is their equivalent of cockfighting.
Yeah, I get that. And he has this whole plan planned out where he's like, first of all, the gardeners are going to find them. And so when the servants find out first, the rumors will spread and they'll never be able to stop them. And this guy is a really good ally of this guy's house where I'm dropping the body. So they'll think that an enemy house did it. But then they'll look into it and find out that it's this guy from a smaller house that wants an alliance with them. And that guy was with him this night and is a known Mistborn and known to be a good knife fighter. So the 2 knives in the back may make them think that this guy did it. And basically, no matter who they end up blaming, it's good for Kelsier because he just wants everybody paranoid and fighting each other. So it's cool because this is the first time we've gotten to see kind of what Kelsier does other than randomly break into houses and kill people to kind of foment this house war that they're trying to get going.
Instead of just breaking into houses and killing people, sometimes he goes out into the streets and kills people.
But
it's very deliberate.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really thought it through. It's not like he's just gone and found somebody. He
Yeah.
went and found somebody that he was like, well, you know what? One, I think you deserve to die more than other people. But two, I can actually make this work for me. Yeah, he's really, really thought it through. So
He does love to foment.
It's impressive the amount of like planning that had to go into this. He did say from the beginning that him and Breeze were going to get together to plan exactly kind of the right buttons to push to get the noblemen like fighting each other.
Yeah.
And then he just he starts going through the night and wonders oddly, you know, as he bounces across rooftops. He's like, I wonder what the people in there think.
It's like, what? Yeah, they hear this on their roof. Is that just like, oh, it's a possum?
And like he says, that, do they attribute the knockings to the ever blamable Mistwraiths? Because people just blame Mistwraiths for things. So,
Jed, there's some Mistwraiths on the damn roof again. Will you get the broom and get them off there?
But Paul, this one has the skull of a rat.
I don't give a rat's ass. I need you up there now.
I think it has the ass of a rat too.
oh gosh.
That seems like a normal conversation in a Scott household, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I hope so.
Except for the fact that we know how terrified they are of Mistwraiths and how they think that they steal your soul or whatever. Other than that.
It's like, Paul, why don't you get rid of the Mistwraith? I can't, son. It's going to take my soul.
That's why we had you.
It's okay if it takes your face, damn it, just not mine. I earn off this face, boy. You don't earn it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, this is by far the dumbest conversation we've had on this show, and we've had some doozies.
So, okay, no, back to the thing. No more possums.
I will never look at a possum the same way.
Yeah.
I saw one in the tree a second ago.
Really?
Yeah, just outside, out the front.
Oh.
Anyway, sorry.
she's like, go on.
There's Mistwraith out there right now. You just don't know.
You go deal with it.
I hope the listeners enjoy the brief look into our home life.
There you go. You learn something new every day. They have possums in Australia, and Dak gets to deal with them. They hang out in the trees with the drop bears and the other things.
I'll get my broom.
Watch out for the venomous snake.
Just one?
We've had one of those in the backyard before.
We had one of those in the backyard, yeah.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Straight.
Yeah. Good times.
Where were we?
So he's kind of thinking about Luthadel as he goes through. After he's thinking about, you know, what the Ska think as he bounces over their roofs. He talks about how Luthadell's really big, and every couple decades they get a new section added. With the advent of the modern canal era, stone was growing relatively cheap and easy to move. So that tells us that canals are relatively new. And I guess before that they had to take everything across land. Although it makes you wonder, like, did a bunch of Ska have to get out and dig some canals, or?
Well, I mean, it's not like they were going to form themselves.
It's true, but it's just like, if you have canals going across the entirety of this empire now, that's a lot of digging that they would have had to do. There's lots of Ska to do it, I guess, but geez. Or maybe the Lord Ruler used his magical Lord Ruler powers. Who knows?
I don't know. It doesn't really seem like he gets. We haven't really heard of him actually going out and doing anything in the empire for a while. So it's like, is he really going to descend to philanthropy or construction work?
I guess it depends on what he gets out of it, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, if they had to dig the canals, it seems like, all right, cool. There's like at the bottom of the canals, you're gonna find a whole lot of Ska skeletons, because that's just how shit works around here. Yeah,
like the Great Wall. Except for, I guess, Ska didn't build the Great Wall. Maybe the equivalent. Let's see. So he wonders why the Lord Ruler even has a big wall around the city, because like not like anyone is going to attack the entire world. He's like, not even the Western Isles resist anymore. The entire world is under the Lord Ruler's control, and he can marshal literally millions of troops if he needs. So, yeah, that makes it sound easy to overthrow him. It's all good. And he goes to talk to an informant who we've heard about the informants a couple times, and Vin even mentions, like, why do I have to go to these parties? Why don't we just get information from informants? And Kelsier's like, well, that's not always reliable, and you reveal information that they will then to sell to someone else the more you ask questions of them, which we see happen in this chapter, that what he says is exactly true. Like, the stuff that he asks and says this guy picks up on to then turn around and probably sell to someone else.
Also, just look at this guy. He's not someone you want to bring into your nice, clean house.
Yeah, okay. So his contact was in the doorway of the closed shop puffing on a pipe, which Kelsier thinks is kind of strange because apparently tobacco is an expensive luxury. So he says Hoyd was either very wasteful or was just as successful as Doxson had implied. By the way,
It's actually pot.
less expensive than tobacco. I just want to say I like the name Hoyd. It's fun to say. Hoyd. Yeah. Might be my favorite name in the book. He puts his pipe away and it says that he's a scrawny, bald man. Kelsier has to hide his arms. You can't have this guy realizing that this nobleman has haths and scars on his arms.
I really want to know what the scars actually look like to make them so distinctive that everyone knows what they are.
Yeah, it's a fair question.
We haven't had them described, have we?
I feel like they've been described as like a crisscross of scars, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Now I want to find it. Well, hold on.
The only thing I remember them saying in the prologue specifically was that it looked like animal scratches, but like all over his arm.
Okay, see, now I'm going to have to go and find out. Let's see. The scars ran all along his fingers and hands, twisting up his arms toward his shoulders. That's not super helpful.
So what, his entire arms are just like more scar tissue than skin now?
Maybe. That would be noticeable, all right.
Mate, your arms look like prunes.
Pretty sure it comes up at some point. But yeah, there's not much description up till now. You're right. Okay, so this Hoyd guy, they go through some standard threats and things where he's like, you have to vow never to speak of this meeting to anyone. And the guy's like, oh, of course, my lord. And Kelsier's like, he's going to break that promise before the night is even out, but it's kind of the whole point.
Yep.
And he's like, well, what about my money? And he's like, you're going to get your money. And what he's asked this guy to find out about is House Renew. And the guy's, all this guy can tell him at first is, they're buying lots of weapons. They go back and forth some, but what Kelsier's really trying to find out is, are there any rumors out there about what's really happening? Because I have to make sure that the street hasn't heard anything about, the rebellion or the survivors association with the house or any of that stuff. And Hoyd has the clever lie about how he can't see anything and his eyes are really bad. And Kelsier's like, oh, nobody would survive long in the other underground half blind, but it's a good excuse because it might make people less cautious about, hiding who they are.
Yeah, it disarms them a bit.
And then Hoyd tells him that Lord Renew is considering a union between his niece and Lord Elend Venture. Kelsier's like, well, that's just stupid. Venture is so far above House Renew. And he's like, but they were, seen talking at a ball a month ago. And Kelsier's like, everybody knows that. He's like, yeah, but does everybody know that Lord Elend spoke very highly of the girl to his friends later on? And Kelsier's like, nobody cares about any of this stuff, and I want my money back. And Hoyd's like, wait. There's secret dealings between these two. I've heard it in the last hour. Lord Renew was able to demand that Elend Venture be assigned to watch over her at balls, and there's even whispers that he has some sort of ... leverage over House Venture. So Vin's little trick has had unintended consequences.
Which I thought that was a really cool little twist to add into that. It's like Vin just had to think on her feet and come up with something so that Elend didn't just ruin her chances at the ball. Uh-huh. And now there's this entire ripple effect throughout the rest of the city, and Kelsier's left just going, what the hell happened at the ball?
It's like something must have happened at this party. Yeah, she's not experienced enough to realize how noble society works and like the repercussions that could happen from the things that she says. But she also didn't have a lot of choice.
No, she came up with a very quick lie, and it worked for her. And it's like, oh, there's more to it than that.
I guess though, if someone ever asked her about why she said that, she can just come back with, oh, I didn't want people to think that I was with him. Like, she's still got that to fall back on. It's a perfectly valid excuse.
It's true. We also find out that word is getting out that Chanelarial is a soother, which to me is kind of sad because we find out later that Vin picked up no new information. This was the one thing that she managed to kind of twig to that would have been interesting to Kelsier if it hadn't just coincidentally come up in his discussion with Hoyd also.
Yeah, that did seem a bit of a cop-out, but no, well.
Poor girl.
I did love this thing. It's like Hoyd says, oh yeah, I felt her when she, like touching my emotions because she was doing it to the servants during a fire. Kelsier had started that fire.
Unfortunately, it hadn't spread beyond the guardhouses. oh, Kelsier, you nut. That's the other kind of see, he's doing all these different things. He's throwing bodies in people's yards. He's starting fires places. It's just, I feel like he's having a good time. Like,
yeah,
he's getting to enjoy himself killing noblemen and things.
Yeah, it's like Vin's gonna be like, "What are we doing tonight, Kelsier?" And he's like, "Tonight I'm gonna put a dead horse's head in the bed of Lord Venture."
That's the reason when you said that, I just like immediately thought you were going to go to, what are we doing tonight, Kelsier? Same thing we do every night, Vin. Try to take over the world.
That's exactly where I thought it was going. I was going to say the same thing.
That is where I was going, but I was like, I got to make it story relevant.
Yeah.
So horse head,
well,
got it.
Well, I mean, they are kind of trying to take over the world.
It's true. From the guy who currently owns it. So then Kelsier drops a few things. He's like, just some BS that he makes Hoyd think that he's saying almost unintentionally, like thinking out loud to himself, so that then Hoyd will turn around and sell these quote-unquote secrets to other people later. It's really very slick, I feel like, what Kelsier does. He's playing kind of both sides of this informant network. Well, literally both sides of the informant network, as we find out that his next appointment is pretending to be an informant. But the whole setup, I feel like, is very slick and very well thought out here. He notes that he drops a coin, and he notes that despite his quote-unquote weak eyesight, Hoyd manages to run over and pluck that coin off the ground also.
I did have a moment when he was describing this, is thinking, what happens if Hoyd tries to pick up the coin while he's pushing off it? Because like immediately my thought was like, oh, he picks it up and Kelsey's going to come tumbling out of the air. Or it's like, actually, no, Kelsey is pushing at it, so he's going to try and pick it up, and it's going to be like someone trying to lift Thor's hammer. It's like, can't lift the fucking coin.
That's the picture that I got. As soon as you said that, I was like, yeah, like Thor's hammer. Like the Hulk trying to pick up Thor's hammer.
Yep. And then, like, when Kelsier stops pushing against it, all of a sudden, like, he can lift it and he just goes flying because he's trying too hard.
That would have been a much better scene. Missed opportunity. Come on, Sanderson, what are you doing? Kelsier shows up at his next appointment, still late because Kelsier's always late, but he knows that this guy is not going to be as forgiving about his tardiness. And it is Lord Straff Venture, who apparently Kelsier has sent a message to saying he has important information that Lord Venture will be interested in. And we find out that Venture is an openly known tin eye, and his excuse for being late is that he was waiting in the alley as we agreed, and Venture's like, we did not agree to that. And he uses the whole excuse that, you know, like someone mentioned earlier, he's stealing Hoyd's ideas. Like, oh, I can barely see my hand in front of my face. I'm sorry. Let's see. Venture hands his dueling cane to a guard and then slaps Kelsier across the face and says, next time you make me wait, it will be the cane. So this is a nice guy.
Well, I know where to go next time. I need a corpse to dump on someone's lawn.
Oh yeah, I don't blame him. So Kelsier has some other stuff information to give this guy to try to turn him against his allies. He's like, oh, this one house is selling this other house weapons for way less than they're charging you. And Venture's kind of like, I don't actually care. Because apparently House Venture is so powerful that it doesn't rely on any specific industry to fuel its wealth, he says, which is a really difficult position to achieve in the Final Empire. So Venture may be like the most powerful house. Which means if Kelsier can turn this guy the right direction with the right information, he can use him against the other houses. But what Straff wants to know is what is up with the survivor of Hathsin, which Kelsier was not expecting. And he tries to play it off. He's like, oh, you know, I've never met him. I don't think that he's really here. I don't think anyone could live through the pits. The Lord Ruler does not make that kind of oversights. And then Straff has also heard the legends of the 11th metal. And Kelsier's like, oh, that's a legend. It's nothing. And Venture says that he pays very close attention to legends. And that legend does not actually exist. Someone is very cleverly manipulating the ska. So what this makes me wonder at this point, is Venture right that there never was any such legend? And Kelsier is the one very cleverly manipulating everyone? Has he been lying to us this whole time? Or did Kelsier just find a legend that Venture has never heard of, despite how Venture thinks he's heard of everything?
I think, given that conversation he had with Doxson just after he and Vin met the Inquisitors in Credit Shore, he seemed really personally, honestly frustrated that he couldn't make the 11th metal work. So I think there is some credence to the idea there is an 11th metal. I mean, we know that Kelsier is the one spreading rumors about it because, like he said, he's the one starting them all. But I think it might be a case of he's bitten off more than he could chew. He's found this legend somewhere, or Sazed remembers it from way back before it got expunged from all the records, and now he's trying to revive it without having any clue what he's actually doing. So that'll be why no one's ever heard of it, why no one knows anything about it, and why he can't do anything with it. But I think it is real, but just that doesn't help them at all.
Okay. Let's see. Then Venture says, maybe the survivor did die in the pits, and if someone had gotten a hold of his corpse, his bones, there are ways to imitate a man's appearance. You know what I speak? And he tells Kelsier to watch for that. And when he can bring him information on this guy, whoever leads the ska, then he'll get some money. So Kelsier didn't even get paid. It's very sad.
Did anyone else, like, when Venture said, like, they get the corpse and the bones, they can imitate a man's appearance, this immediately made me think, oh, okay, this is a step closer to finding out what's happened to Lord Reno.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So whatever Venture's talking about, you guys think that's what's going on with Renu?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In reference to Kelsier not getting paid, I mean, that's how the rich stay rich. Am I right? They don't pay.
But I think in this case, though, like, I don't think Kelsier was doing it to be paid, but he definitely got more valuable information, and Venture's definitely more on top of this than I think anyone thought. So that's some pretty useful information to have.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's him knowing what these rumors. He's basically given to Kelsier the knowledge that, okay, some people out there are starting to figure out what's going on, and so I got to get ahead of this.
Well, I mean, they're recruiting enough people have heard the pitch and the speech, like it was bound to get out at some point.
Yeah, it's probably true. And Kelsier even comments later, he's like, the smart ones among the high nobility are starting to get worried. So that tells us where he places Venture in that hierarchy. Which I guess really, if he's like lord of one of the most powerful houses, you kind of expect him not to be an idiot.
Yeah.
I like the little note on the spike way that he's like, Kelsier didn't put the spikes there. He wondered what would happen if he ran into another Mistborn going in the opposite direction. We'd probably just ignore each other. We're good at that.
It's like, do you wave at other cars using the highway, or do you just drive past them?
It's true. Of course, in this situation, the cars would be super secret identities of important noblemen. But yeah,
I find it like if you're driving a Lamborghini on the highway and you see another Lamborghini driving past, it's like, what's up? Hey, man.
You do you.
Speaking of, just now I'm curious. We know from early in the book that people who are nobles, who are actually Mistborn, tend to hide it because you don't want people knowing who the secret weapons are, basically. We've heard of one guy who is like an openly known Mistborn, the guy that Kelsier's half trying to frame for this murder. Does anybody else that we've met strike you guys as someone who might secretly be Mistborn?
I haven't actually thought about it, but now that you bring it up, I'm gonna have to.
The only one I can think of is, and I know they're kind of trying to drive us away from this thought, but maybe Elend, because maybe I know they said that he went through a traumatic experience and then he didn't show any, like he almost died and didn't show any allomantic power. But I feel like maybe he did snap and he just didn't show his power at that point. Maybe that was his snapping point and he just hasn't gotten there yet. And so maybe
possibly,
yeah. So maybe he just hasn't shown his powers to anyone, but he did snap at some point.
I guess now that you've said that, if someone attacks you and that is the moment when you snap, you probably don't have any medals waiting around to drink to test if you are now like a Misting or a Mistborn. So you wouldn't know until later when you tried like ingesting some metals whether it was true.
Right.
Actually, now that you bring it up, like that probably would go a long way to explaining his arrogance about dealing with his dad. And it's like, if I act well enough, my dad will eventually cave in. If he is a Mistborn, then he's too valuable to lose. So his dad would probably as much as Straff Venture would be annoyed at Elend's activity, he'd be like, but I can't lose a Mistborn. That like. That's a thought.
He might even find his son intimidating if his son is like that powerful, and all he's got is the ability to use tin and enhance his senses.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious. We haven't even met that many nobility yet, so it's probably an unfair question at this point. I was just, while we were talking about it, that popped into my head, and I was kind of curious what you thought.
It's definitely something to keep in mind as we go.
So Kelsier gets back to the house, kind of tells everyone, people are starting to hear these rumors about me and about the 11th metal, and it's getting around. So we'll have to spread opposite rumors to kind of cancel that out so the nobility focus on each other. Amusingly, Lord Venture encouraged me to search out information about myself. A man could get confused from this kind of play acting. And this is where Joe talked about at the start. He's like, I don't know how you do it, Renu. And Renu said, it is who I am, the Conjure said simply. So also a new word. We're getting a couple of new words this chapter, or these chapters.
I feel like they just slid over that so easily. It's like, oh, well, maybe that's what his species or whatever is called. And for whatever reason, Sanderson's just like, here, have this. Try to figure that out real quick. I mean, technically, if he is what we believe he is based on an earlier discussion, we could just assume that somehow his species can use the bones of somebody who is dead to reanimate that person into themselves. I mean, I guess we could make that jump of logic, but obviously it hasn't been explained how it works.
Yeah, and this could just be the term for a mist wraith that does do that. Kandra.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have a lot of information except that, I mean, it's not a typo. So
we don't have a lot of information. We actually have no information whatsoever.
Well, so we have, I mean, in this case, we know that it's not really Lord Renu. They've told us that much. It's somebody impersonating him somehow. We now know that whatever's impersonating him, it's called a Kandra, whether that's a species name or like a title or even something you call, it's like an assassin.
Yeah, or for all we know, it could just be the Luthadel word for actor.
Oh, it totally could.
And and Kelsier has just found himself a Daniel Day-Lewis to do this part. Like we have nothing to go on.
Yeah, I really hope he's like some kind of clay-face creature that like just
that would be
morphs,
so cool.
that like touches somebody's bones and just like morphs into them.
Well, yeah, and we know from just a minute ago in this chapter, may be related, may not, that Venture specifically says, if they can get a hold of somebody's bones, there's ways to impersonate them. So I think that how close these are together is probably a strong hint that he's trying to be like, hey, these things are related in some way.
Yeah.
But, there's not a lot of information to go on for us. Okay, so then Vin's annoyed because Sazed already knew everything she found out from her hours of dancing. And Kelsier kind of explains that it'll probably be a few months before you've made enough contacts to actually get the kind of information we need. But they're going to get her up to going to a few of these a week. God, that'd be tiring. And Kelsier knows what. She's like, oh, did you tell people that Renu and Venture are friends? And Vin's like, how do you know? And he's like, I'm mysterious and powerful. Anyway, or I'm mysterious. And
actually, I was just talking to the smelly dude down by the dock.
Yeah, exactly. It's much more interesting when Kelsier says I'm mysteriously powerful than telling the truth. Yeah, there was a smelly bald guy who pretended that he couldn't see and wanted money, and he told me. You'll just have to be careful dealing with House Venture, Lord Renu. We'll have to see how they react to this. So do you guys think that there will be a reaction? Is there going to be consequences from what Vin said?
Well, from what little we've seen of Straff Venture, I get the feeling he will probably be like, oh, okay, this is the first I've heard of this, so he might pay a call on Lord Reno and just go, why are people talking about us? Because, I mean, what was it, Hoy had said something about, like, Reno apparently was able to make the demand that Elend watch over Vin at the ball or something like that, and Straff is going to be like, what the fuck? No one makes demands of me. I'm going to have a word with you about this.
I think it's definitely going to result in more attention being on Renault than what they wanted.
Okay, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that, if anything. Because Straff, you're right, doesn't seem like the kind of guy to take that stuff laying down. And if Renu is an important nobleman-ish, not as important as the great houses, because we know that the public story is he came here hoping to make enough money basically to become a great house in the next decade or so. So if Mr. already one of the most powerful great houses, Elend Venture, feels he can treat Lord Renew the same way that Chanelarial was treating Valette Renew, then that could be an interesting scene, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sazed mentions
And they
that
gave Venture's bones to something.
it's like, hey, your bones look really good. I want to see that as like a subtle thing. Like Lord Renew's talking to somebody, he's like, you have really nice bone structure. What a strange compliment. Thank you, sir.
There's just like another canter in the room. It's like, let me touch your bones. What?
Let me get close. I want to smell them bones.
Okay, moving on. Sazed mentions seeing Elend run off with these two, and Kelsier's like, huh, interesting. Probably just trying to piss off his father, but keep an eye on that, because maybe Lord Venture and his son are playing us all for fools. And then Vin chases him down to say something she doesn't even want to say in front of Sazed, and tells Kelsier about, Elend's book that he's hiding. And we kind of talked about it at the time, so we won't get into it much here. But Kelsier's like, oh yeah, that's this one book. I recognize it just from your vague description. And here's where he calls Chanelarial the former fiance, probably looking for something to blackmail him with. And Vin's like, I think she's an allomancer, Kelsier. And he's like, yeah, she's a soother. I know. It doesn't matter that I just found that out an hour ago, and that's a really good secret that you found. I know. You're not important anymore.
Yeah, let me just take that accomplishment away from you, because it's not like you got nothing else to hang on to.
Yeah, this book just kind of was doomed to obscurity by the Ministry not expressly forbidding it. And I like the discussion. It's probably a discussion that I've seen elsewhere about like how banning books is kind of a double-edged sword, because you basically have to publicize it and say, hey, everyone, look at this book. It's banned.
Yeah, look at this book. Now don't
this.
look at it. Yeah. Well, that was a Harry Potter thing, wasn't it?
I don't know if anybody
There
actually
were
banned
banned
it.
books.
No, sorry. In the Harry Potter universe, not the Harry Potter books themselves, but in universe.
Oh.
Wasn't like that teacher tried to ban the magazine at one point?
Yes,
Yeah.
actually, that's a really good point. Yeah, she tried to ban the magazine, which just made sure that everyone knew about it, so they
Yeah.
all were trying to read it. Yeah, that's exactly the right same thing.
And Hermione was just like, oh god, that's the one thing she could have done to make sure everyone reads it.
The Quibbler.
That's the one.
And I like Kelsier decides as a little test, he's like, hey, you know what? Maybe this Elend Venture has books that are actually forbidden. And if we kind of let that slip to the Inquisitors, wow, the execution of the Venture heir would add to the political turmoil. And Vin's like, what? No! So he's like, oh, she's totally falling for him. I should have seen this. And he thinks that several times, like, oh, this is so, like, I should have known this would happen. It's totally predictable. And at the same time, he's like, I don't have time for this crap. Just
he's totally a shotgun dad.
Yeah. Well, and I think he's enough in the know to know, like, I've been young. I was in love with somebody. She's not going to listen to reason on this. The only thing I can do is warn her, but I'm just going to have to deal with it when I have to deal with it.
I think you're probably right. Yeah. He knows more than anyone about being an impetuous young person, since he was one up to like until Vin got stabbed, and then he calmed down a little bit, basically.
Well, I mean, he's still got elements of that. So
Oh, no, he definitely does.
I'm mysteriously powerful.
And she tries to talk Kelsier into, like, he's interested in the ska, and he could be an ally for us or something. And Kelsier's like, was his interest compassionate or intellectual? And she's just like, oh, well. And he expressly tells her, he's like, look, I'm going to lay this out for you. He is not our friend. I told you to stay away from him. When you spend time with this person, it puts the operation and your entire crew in jeopardy. Do you understand? And at the same time, it's like, she's not going to listen. I know.
Like, were we not just talking about how banning something is the way to make sure
That's
like people do that thing? Like, don't stay away from this boy. Ah, crap, that's not going to work.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about how those are kind of similar. And we end the chapter with Kelsier being like, bloody hell, I do not have time to deal with this right now. So, I don't know. we kind of talked about at the beginning how this, especially coming off the last big group of chapters that we read, there's not a lot that happens here, but there's a lot of kind of information and a lot of interesting little bits. So do y'all have any final thoughts about these 2 chapters before we move on to predictions?
Well, I mean, like, it's laying a few seeds, and I feel like we've now definitely actually met a few more characters among the nobility who are going to play a part. I mean, the Shan Ilariel thing seemed like, oh, it's kind of just this is a typical bitchy lady from high society, but they wouldn't throw her in like that if she wasn't going to be important in some way, and ditto for Elend Venture. So, like, we're finally starting to see, like, people from the other side of the fence become characters, people who are going to be actual antagonists. So, rather than just this vague, the nobility are the bad guys thing.
I think this also sets up for the possibility that Elend Venture is going to be like a really large part of what happens. Like, I foresee, and I'm getting in predictions a little bit here. I foresee, him, like, at some point Vin tries to, like, tells him the truth and tries to convince him to help them, and he's going to be like, no, I he's going to feel really uncomfortable about it, because I think Kelsier's right about this guy. He likes to philosophize. That's probably not a word. He likes to talk about these things philosophically with his friends. But I don't think if push came to shove at this point, I don't think he would be willing to actually go all in and try to overthrow the whole world that he's lived in.
Okay. It sounds like you're thinking maybe it's not as bad as Kelsier and Sazed are saying. Maybe he's not just in it to, mess with her intentionally, but that he's probably not going to live up to what she's kind of hoping for.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know that he's necessarily playing a game of cat and mouse. Now, she may get caught up in one between Sean and him because of Sean, but I don't know that it's specifically his intent to do that.
Okay. So let's move into predictions for the end of the episode. Who wants to predict things that probably won't come true?
That's the best kind.
Yeah.
I think I was just going to say, I think I predicted all I wanted to predict with what I was saying when I did the chapter summary. I think there's going to be some kind of turn with Elend. There might be a game between he and Sean that involves Vin. Not that Elend wants to do that, but that it will happen. And, there may be a whole, like, nobility philosophizer. Wow, I can't even say a word that has to do with philosophy correctly. But there may be a whole group of these noblemen that are kind of thinking, things could be different. Scar people, right? But I don't know that it's going to be enough to kind of get them to move and be active in any kind of rebellion in any sense.
Okay, that makes sense. So maybe there's some noblemen that aren't, quite as bad as the others, but that doesn't mean that they want to overthrow the whole thing. Logical.
I think I predicted it a couple of episodes ago, but like Elend, I think he's definitely more involved than we think. And now this encounter with Elend Venture as well, like House Venture are pretty on top of what's going on. They know a lot more than what I think anyone was hoping that they would at this point. For Elend to kind of link up with Vin, I don't know that he knows what role she plays. I think he is probably genuinely fascinated, but there's definitely more to him than this I'm just going to do everything to piss off my father attitude. Like, that's a really good front or a cover or something, but the point about, he came back really quickly after Vin had been through the books, and maybe they're at the point of trying to suss out, like, who's this new kid on the block. She's part of House Reno. There's new movers in town. I think it almost is shaping him up to have Vin think that he is safe and that he's an ally, but I definitely think he's on the other side of this, and House Venture and the Lord Ruler, they already know a lot more that's going to happen than we do, but he's spying for the other side, I think.
So you think this is all part of your other prediction about how the Lord Ruler can see the future and maybe already has things set up waiting?
Yeah, maybe like he can't see as far into the future as what I thought. Like, they still need to find information, but I think Elend is definitely the guy on that end. I think Shana Lerial, she's got her own issues with Elend, which is, maybe she's just trying to find some blackmail on him or whatever. I don't think she's going to be as big a player in how this all pans out. But yeah, Elend, I would pin him as the spy for the other side.
Okay. Dak, you get to go last again.
Oh, sorry. All right. Well, for the absolute dumbass theory, which I don't believe this is true, but it just popped into my head while Jamie was talking. Then I just sort of pictured while this is all going on with the Scar Rebellion, like Elend and his mates are actually forming the Noblemen's Rebellion, and then they'll all meet in the sewers, like in Monty Python's Life of Brian. They'll all fight. It's like, no, our cause is the most righteous. That just popped into my head out of nowhere. So no, my prediction at this stage is more like obviously Vin wants to keep hanging out with Elend, and as a result of that, he's going to invite her to sneak out, and maybe they'll go down to, what was it, the Broken Quill, their little philosophy club, and she'll
that's what they said.
Yeah, so she'll probably, I think, like, there'll be a night where she will sneak out of the house and go with Elend down to there, and ostensibly it's just going to be a whole bunch of people sitting around talking philosophy, which sounds like the most boring night ever. But there's going to be something else going on there. I don't know, pagan ritual of some kind, maybe. I don't know. Like this. No, well, I have no idea. But like, there's going to be something going down in this place under the front of being a boring philosophy and wine club. There's actually going to be something sinister going on under the surface there.
Sure. Heroin den, right? Something like that.
Look, maybe.
Yeah, fantasy heroin. It'll have a weird name, but same thing.
Everyone's just sitting around like on the hookah pipe, and they're talking philosophy. It's like, the only reason we die is because we accept it as inevitability, or some bullshit.
Okay, so we're gonna have a whole thing at the philosophy club / bar and grill or whatever. Okay.
But yeah, I think when they get there. There's going to be something under the surface, and it's going to be something a bit more sinister.
Now I want to see a pagan ritual. You got my hopes up. We know there's only one religion allowed, but maybe there's something, hiding.
They're going to burn an effigy. Maybe
the Lord Ruler's religion has secret human sacrifices that we don't know about yet.
Or maybe like they come from another religion. They're just like, we worship the Inquisitors. Screw the Lord Ruler. We want to elevate the spike faces to the throne.
The Lord Ruler stays young by bathing in virgin blood once every 3 days. Yeah. Okay. We have a couple of emails that I was going to read this week that we received.
And now for the next segment, the email bag. Listeners, please make a song for the email bag segment.
Show wants all sorts of products from the listeners. He doesn't want to have to pay for any of this stuff. He wants you to give it to him for free.
I mean, that's how podcasts get songs, man.
You're doing it for the exposure.
Oh God, no! Don't get me started on.
Yeah, no.
I follow the Choosing Beggars subreddit. I know how the exposure thing goes. Anyway, first email that we received is from.
I apologize for making that joke. That was terrible.
Yes.
If I don't pronounce the name right, forgive me. It's spelled Naava, so I want to say Nava. And I also don't know if it's a male or female name, since I've never seen the name before. But the little avatar looks female, so I'm going to call it a girl. So I apologize, Nava, if I also get that wrong. But she says, "Hey, wanted to let you all know that I'm really enjoying your journey through Mistborn. I like your predictions, as they are a hilarious mixture of wow, that's accurate, you almost got it, and haha, not even close. Also, if I remember correctly,
just what we were going for.
Exactly, right? It totally fits. If I remember correctly, Dak, Jamie, and Joe all made at least one accurate prediction, and I'm looking forward to your reactions when you get to those parts. And then,
by the time we get there, we'll probably will have forgotten.
It's probably true, but I'm hoping that, like, if you guys have made some, big story-changing predictions that turn out to be accurate, we'll get there and you'll be like, holy shit, I was right. I'm hoping for a good reaction if and when that happens.
Yep.
And then there's a PS at the end of the email addressed specifically to me that says, did you explain to them the meaning of the title of the podcast, or are you waiting for them to experience it firsthand?
Oh.
So does anyone feel like they have gotten an explanation of what the Sanderlanche is?
Didn't you tell us it was just because he releases so many books like so frequently, and like it just feels like an avalanche of books coming out of this guy?
I did not
something
tell
like
you that. Because
I could have sworn you did.
That would have been wholly inaccurate if I had said that, which means, of course, that I would never say it. Because I am known far and wide for my
I
correctness.
swear I remember you saying that. So if you didn't, then I must have imagined it. In which case, I'm way off the mark. Ignore me.
Is it because we'll want to read all of his stuff because it's like an avalanche of deliciousness?
Are you eating the book?
I'm going to take that as a no. You guys do not feel like you've been given an explanation of what the Sanderlanche is. We will get there, and I'm hoping for an excellent reaction when we address that. I won't go any further into that. Thank you for your question, Nava. It allowed me to tease them even more.
So don't Google the Sanderlanche is what you're saying.
You know, you could probably Google it. I think our podcast might show up. Hold on. Now I'm going to do it. 1 second. Not the Sandlot, Sanderlanche. Well, of course, it probably knows me since it's my computer. But the first thing that pops up is our podcast webpage, and then a few other things related to our podcast,
cookies,
including the Twitter and the Facebook site, and something called Podtail. I'm not sure what that is, but there is one Reddit thread that pops up as the second result that says when you hit the Sanderlanche, which is not related to us, and if you click that would probably be a potential kind of spoiler. So no, don't Google the Sanderlanche is where we're going to land on that, I think.
Okay.
But thank you, Nava. That was that was a fun email for me. And the second one is from Eli. And Eli says, "Hi, I've been listening to your podcast and I'm loving it. Thank you. My favorite thing is to ask my friends about all their thoughts, theories, and predictions. So this podcast is everything I love to hear about. And some of their theories truly are excellent work. They've heard that before from so many others, though, so perhaps don't let it go to their heads. I've also especially appreciated listening to your podcast since I'm using it partially as a reread of the books, since I've been busy rereading other books and don't have time to reread Mistborn, even though it's been so long that I need a refresher on it, especially in preparation for the release of Rhythm of War later this year. There's always another secret. Your fellow Sanderspren, Eli." So Rhythm of War, by the way, is book 4 in the Stormlight Archives, coming out in November, in case anyone didn't know. I mean, you guys, obviously, the three of you don't know much about that, but I just meant audience in general. But thank you, Eli. I agree. It's one of my favorite things, too, is hearing people's thoughts and as they go through these things for the first time, which is why there's a lot of people who read these books for the first time go to one of the Sanderson subreddits and they post their thoughts. And I love reading those so much that was one of the inspirations. Like, we're going to do a podcast of this exact thing because it's so much fun to hear these reactions. So I agree with you, Eli, is what I'm saying. Those were the 2 emails we received. Thank you, Eli. Thank you, Nava. If anyone else wants to send us things, email thesanderlanche@gmail.com. The Sanderlanche Facebook page, at the Sanderlanche on Twitter. We have all sorts of avenues that you can speak to us, yell things at us.
Also, please like us on Facebook. I think we've only got 12 likes there so far.
Oh, yeah, totally like us on Facebook. We've gotten a few Twitter likes, which is nice. You guys are cool. Thanks for liking and following and things of that nature.
Thank you for indulging our crazy ramblings.
Music by Miracle of Sound. Check it out. I've been looking into songs for the next things that we will be doing. The next thing on the schedule will not actually be, in case anyone's wondering, the next book in the series. It's going to be a short story, is what I have planned.
Oh. Okay.
Ooh.
The short story actually takes place before this book. It's a little bit about Kelsier and his master, who trained him. So anyway.
Oh,
cool.
yeah, that guy he mentioned once and we haven't spoken of since.
So anyway, that's I've gotten a couple of questions in email that I didn't read on here that were just like, hey, can you tell me what your overall plan is so that I can follow along or whatever? And so that's why I thought I would mention it at this point, what's coming up next, even though it's 9 more weeks before we're done with what we're doing now. But anyway, thanks everybody for listening. And we will see you next week for chapters 20 and 21 of Mistborn, The Final Empire. See you then.
Bring out the brother in me. I'm searching for unity. Everything is changing inside of me. The city's under my feet. The ruin I'm feeling. Everything is changing inside of me.
was giving you all a chance to be like, bye.
Oh,
Or I could have been
sorry.
like,
Bye.
Say
Well,
bye, Joe.
let's do it now. Yeah.
It's like, say goodnight, Joe.
Good night.
You didn't do the joke where I'm like, say goodnight, Joe, and you're like, goodnight, Joe. It's the
Oh.
classic like
Okay,
vaudeville.
do it.
That's a
Do it again.
dad
Do
joke.
it again. Do it again. Do it again. Team me up. Here we go.
Say goodnight, Joe.
Good night, Joe.
Ha ha ha. Okay, it wasn't funny. I was hoping after I teed it up for you, you'd actually take in a different direction and be like, no, you say goodnight, Joe, or something. But you just did
No, you
exactly
lock
what
it
I
up.
asked for. So
That's
How
what
How dare
actors
you
are
do
supposed to
exactly what I tell you to do?
Yeah. How
Anyway.
dare I act in the way that I was told to by the director of the podcast?
okay, I'm stopping the recording now.